We begin tonight with our big story, Trayvon Martin. Joining me now to figure out where this case is headed are Roy Black and Alan Dershowitz, both noted criminal defence attorneys, and former prosecutor Jeff Ashton, who is the author of a new book, Imperfect Justice. And let me start with you, Alan Dershowitz. Today was I would imagine, fairly significant day. This is not going to go to the grand jury. What does that tell you as a prominent lawyer?
Well, it tells me that the special prosecutor is not going to use a cop-out. She could have easily said, look, I'm going to give it to the grand jury, and pretended that she had no impact on the grand jury. Of course, she would have told the grand jury exactly what to do, but she would have had the excuse, the deniability. Now she's saying, this is my responsibility. I'm going to make this decision. She is accountable to making this decision, and she should get it right. She shouldn't be influenced by public opinion. She shouldn't be influenced by who has the better PR or spin. She should look at the forensics. She should look at the ballistics. She should look at bruises. She should look at photographs, and she should make an objective decision based on the statute and the interests of justice.
Roy Black, is this good or bad news for George Zimmerman? If you were representing him, how would you be feeling tonight?
Well, I think it's bad news for Zimmerman. I agree with Alan 100%. In Florida, the grand jury is where political cases go to die. If the prosecutor wanted to dump the case and not have any backlash, she would send it to the grand jury. The fact that she's going to make the decision, I think, means that she's probably going to charge him.
Jeff Ashton, you know a lot about this Florida law. Clearly, Stand Your Ground's been the subject of massive conjecture and examination. Under the defence that we've now seen put up by Zimmerman, through his brother to me on this show, through the lawyers acting for Zimmerman, you can see the construct of their defence, which is that their client, or the brother of Robert Zimmerman, George, was walking back away from Trayvon Martin to his van when he was jumped on, and from that moment he was then defending himself, Stand Your Ground, believing that his life was in danger. If that is proven to be the case, if those facts are proved by evidence, will he get off Stand Your Ground, do you believe?
Well, if the evidence shows that he was acting in self-defense and that his fear was reasonable, and yeah, under the law, that would be an absolute defense. And under the Stand Your Ground provisions, a judge could actually give him immunity pre-trial. At trial, it's a slightly different story. At trial, the state has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that it wasn't self-defense. But if he proves it to a judge, yes, he could be granted immunity by that statute.
But from what you've seen so far, is there enough evidence either way? I mean, there's so much argument and counter-argument, claim and counterclaim. Is there enough evidence that we've seen in the public at the moment, in any form of media, if you like, to actually make a case either way? Or is this very likely now to go to a trial where a jury will decide?
Well, we don't know yet. And I think what Alan said in the beginning was true. This case is going to come down to forensics. It's going to come down to the autopsy report. It's going to come down to gunshot residue. It's going to come down to bruises. It's going to come down to that kind of hard physical evidence. But what people have to remember is the state has got to disprove Mr. Zimmerman's claim of self-defense beyond a reasonable doubt in order to succeed at trial. So those hard pieces of evidence are going to be the key.
Alan Dershowitz, I mean,
Can I add to this?
Yes, of course. Go on, far away.
Well, all you have to do is to take the facts out of the police report. They say that George Zimmerman's back was wet, that it has grass on it from obviously lying on the grass. He had blood on his nose, and he has lacerations on the back of his head. This is fairly corroborative evidence of self-defense, because he says that he was jumped on and he was lying on his back and he was assaulted.
But let me put it to you, though, Roy Black. If those signs of evidence were actually caused as a result of George Zimmerman starting the altercation, I mean, if for argument's sake he approached Trayvon Martin and began pushing him around, where does that leave his defense? Stand Your Ground.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's much more difficult if he is the aggressor. However, remember, he's got the grass on his back and his back is wet, which corroborates the fact that he's lying on his back on the ground while he's being hit in the face.
Alan Dershowitz, I mean, what we don't know, Alan Dershowitz, we don't know whether Trayvon Martin's back was wet. It may well have been. We don't know much about Trayvon Martin in terms of his condition, do we?
You put your finger right on it. If it turns out that Trayvon Martin only has, I hate to say only because it was a deadly wound, only has the bullet wound and there are no other marks or bruises on his head, then the stand your ground statute may be irrelevant here, because if in fact Zimmerman's account is correct, that he was on the bottom and his head was being banged, he had no place to escape to. He could, under any traditional law of self-defense, whether it be Massachusetts or New York, could invoke self-defense as well. Florida has a special provision. I'm reading from it now. It says if the person initially provokes the use of force, he doesn't have the right of self-defense unless, it then says in good faith, the other person withdraws from contact or makes it clear that he's not going to kill. So here's one possible scenario. That is that Zimmerman provoked it, then there was a fight, then Trayvon Martin got on top, but then he pulled out his gun and Trayvon Martin started screaming, help, help, and looked like he wanted to get away, but he was shot. That would deny Zimmerman the right to use self-defense. This is such a fact-specific case. The other commentators are absolutely correct.
Yes.
You look at the police reports. You have to look at the evidence. There are probably photographs taken close range of the bruises on the back of the head. Anybody who today speculates as to whether a jury will find the defendant guilty or not guilty is really doing no more than speculation. And there's a big difference between a prosecutor and a jury. A prosecutor could be influenced by politics. A jury will listen to all the facts afresh and will only hear the forensic evidence that's admissible, and a jury may decide something that's inconsistent with what the public wants, what the prosecutor wants, or what anybody else wants. Their only interest is this case proved beyond a reasonable doubt? So
and Jeff Ashton, let me just get into what George Zimmerman has said today. He set up this website to raise money for his defence. He says on Sunday, February the 26th, I was involved in a life-altering event which led me to become the subject of intense media coverage. As a result of this incident and subsequent media coverage, I've been forced to leave my home, my school, my employer, my family, and ultimately my entire life. The website's sole purpose is to ensure my supporters they're receiving my full attention without any intermediaries. I mean, Jeff Ashton, it goes on in quite a weird way, I think, where he starts quoting people. He quotes James W. Lowen saying, people have a right to their own opinions, but not to their own facts. Evidence must be located, not created, and opinions not backed by evidence cannot be given much weight. And then goes on to quote Thomas Paine, the world is my country, all mankind are my brethren, and to do good is my religion. Mm-hmm. And finally, a quote from an album in which he says, 1,000 words will not leave so deep an impression as one deed, from Ibsen there. When you look at all that, Jeff Ashton, I mean, I understand why he's doing this. I understand why he needs money. I understand if he's an innocent man, as he claims, why he should be perfectly entitled to try and raise funds. I find some of the rest of it a little bit odd in the sense that it feels like he's almost behaving like a celebrity now. The whole celebrification of this case is getting to him. What was your take on it?
Well, he doesn't have, photographs or videos of a child to sell like Casey Anthony did to raise money for her defense. So I understand why, he needs to go out and try to raise money this way. It does seem that he is trying to play into the celebrity aspects of this case. He's in the Anthony case, Jose Baez, did much of the same thing, played to the celebrity in the case. Fortunately, this defense actually has a consistent defense, so we won't be hearing the stories change throughout the history of the case, unlike we did with Mr. Baez in the Anthony case. But, it's his way of bringing his followers together and marshaling them and trying to get them to help him.
It's a big mistake. If I were his lawyer, I would tell him...
Okay, very quickly. We go to Alan first for your reaction.
I would say he's making a big mistake. If I were his lawyer, I would tell him to keep your mouth shut at this point. You have to assume that you might take the witness stand at your trial, and anything that you say or that is attributable to you that your lawyer may say can be used to cross-examine you and impeach you. Keep your mouth shut at this point. Wait till you hear whether there's going to be a prosecution, and then present your defense in court. This is not a case to present his defense in the court of public opinion in the way he's now presenting it. It's a big mistake.
Roy Black, quickly from you.
Well, the chances of George Zimmerman actually writing that website are probably nil. And the problem with remaining silent until the trial today, it doesn't work because they have an electronic lynch mob out there trying to crucify this guy. He's got to come back and say something, otherwise it's all over by the time you get to the courtroom.
Let me ask all of
Well, I
you
think
very.
somebody else
I
can
want a
speak for
one-word
him.
answer out of all three of you, if you can, and it's simple. Could we, should we, will we expect to have a arrest of George Zimmerman within the next, say, 7 days? Let me ask you, Alan, first.
I think probably yes. I agree with Roy Black that I think the decision not to go to the grand jury is a message, although she says don't take any implication, that there will probably be an indictment and an arrest.
That was about 32 words, just from my immediate guess,
Oh,
but we'll
sorry.
try. Roy, you're allowed one.
Yes, he'll be arrested, but a judge will dismiss it under the Stand Your Ground statute.
Okay, 12. We're getting lower. Let's go finally to Jeff Ashton. Restore my faith in a lawyer's ability to actually reply to the question I put in the form in which I arranged it. Yes or no to an arrest within 7 days?
Let me be even shorter. I know Angela Corey, and there's no knowing what she's going to do from these announcements she's made. It's not a clue.
That was actually longer. But anyway, I tell you what it shows me. What it shows me is there are no simple answers in this case. And that's what's making it fascinating and compelling. And in the end, the facts, I hope, will out. And the family of Trayvon Martin will get justice, as indeed the family of George Zimmerman will want to get justice too. And we'll just have to see where this takes us. But for now, gentlemen, thank you all very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Coming up next, the angry and utterly unpredictable Lewis Black. Let's see what he's ranting about tonight. He looks furious.